Sinal de início.
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde a todos. Em nome da APIMEC, quero agradecer o Banco do Estado do Rio Grande do Sul por mais esta reunião. O banco faz parte do nível 1 de governança corporativa. Estão compondo a mesa os senhores Cláudio Coutinho, presidente, Irani Santana, vice-presidente e diretor de risco, Marcos Vinícius Feijó Staffen, diretor de finanças e relações com investidores, Oswaldo Lobo, diretor de crédito, Alexandre Pedro Ponzi, superintendente executivo de relações com investidores. Por parte da APIMEC estou eu, Luci Souza, de São Paulo, e Ivanor Vera Torres, da APIMEC Sul. Então, eu passo a palavra à companhia, né, ao presidente, senhor Cláudio Coutinho, para a abertura da sessão.
Obrigado, Luci. Obrigado, Ivanor. Obrigado especialmente à APIMEC do Rio Grande do Sul e de São Paulo. Agradeço a oportunidade para o Banrisul expor a seus investidores e stakeholders sua estratégia e o seu desempenho. O Banrisul, como todos sabem, é um banco de varejo que é dominante no mercado do Rio Grande do Sul, com forte presença em todos os produtos bancários de varejo, com um portfólio completo e diversificado, incluindo seguros, adquirência, consórcio, e ao mesmo tempo é um banco, como veremos ao longo dessa apresentação, que se renova, investindo maciçamente em tecnologia, proporcionando cada vez mais experiências positivas aos seus clientes. Passo a palavra, então.
Providing more positive experiences to its clients. Now I give the word to Alexandre Ponce of Relations with Investors. So thank you very much, President. So just getting directly to slide number 4. Looking about the market, Banrisul is actually a retail bank that's more than 2 years in the market, mainly in the state of the Rio Grande do Sul that we have placed in the map. But it also has a share with some credit products, mainly for consigned credit that are offered for in the whole country. So we introduce here a retail. We focus in the south of the country, 4.4 million clients, 95% are natural people, and that gives us a very big competitive advantage in market participation, 40%, and Rio Grande do Sul, they suffer the fact that the structure is much focused in the state than in the whole country, but we've got 22% of our of savings and becoming compensation, because now we are going to see that we leave today in 2020 the credit portfolio is 20%, but it's inferior the amount that we've got in term investments, and then savings also we've got 12.4 in the state. In the next slide, we've got the corporate profile of the bank that we're going to start from the bottom to up, because yes, the bank has as a commitment to be a retail bank, but for Rio Grande do Sul, but it's a market that's very competitive, that like in our state, very relevant market share, but it's actually growing its focus on the client to provide the best solution for its clients regarding financial products and client satisfaction. The solutions will actually permeate every single channel, and mainly the new channels, the most efficient within Banrisul Digital, and we are going to talk about that. But it's also actually based in a structure that's more addressing more the production of businesses and efficiencies, by providing within the company a very fast delivery for products, processes, and and relationship products and people management. That's very important for a company of our sizes, a retail bank. And this process brings us a transformation of these business models. They use more massive use of technology and of artificial intelligence, and will maintain boundaries, so more and more competitive in the market, and that delivers us into efficiency. And we try to implement simplified agile processes that they are based in infrastructure and IT infrastructure, but not only that, also in risk management and alignment with the best management practices, because our strategy is for retail, for natural people, regardless of the profile. Today, the bank has a focus more near to the client, and also with the public sector, but we have 4.4 million clients, and that portfolio is 10%. Yeah, so we do have space for that. Financial solutions will actually achieve different client profiles, and in small companies, we've got a focus in small and medium companies in our funding structures. So, but also we're using that part of clients to strengthen financial services, to increase more and more the structure of creation of fees where there are products with credit cards or whatever, but we are starting to work in a product that will enable us to increase the share within the production of credits. That's agriculture. Agricultural credits has a very big importance within the state of Rio Grande do Sul, directly and indirectly. It's not because actually the agribusiness is our flow, because it's a loyalty product for our clients. So all those business structures are made so that we can have a better governance process, because we've got we're opening our shares, so we've got 3 assets that are, but what it actually has liquidity, and differently what's actually more than 80,000 natural people. That means that we have increased our base of shareholders, but we've got our focus in liquidity in the P&D. So, but the total structure of the social capital, the state of the controllers, and the efforts of governance wants to identify a mixed economy controlled by a public entity, but it's got a little bit less of the total shares, and that 50% are concentrated in common shares of the many, and about 51% of other shares, they are the float of Banrisul, and that float, as I told you, today hasn't have 80,000. That was actually sent to us as per has more than 122,000 natural people as shareholders that are there in the shares in the bourse, in the stockhold. So we've got people that are actually written, and others have not in negotiation. So in total, I would tell you that we've got 150,000 shareholders, and 20% is women of these shareholders, and 80% is made by the bank. As Lucy said, it's in level 1 of governance, corporate governance. She's got a very big share created by foreign investors that are 47% of the float, and have negotiate a ticket of 22 million per day. So, and is present in 7 different places. So a company shouldn't be different with the strength of the structure of corporate structure. Prevention of money laundering. What are we doing? There are different mechanisms that will enable us so that we can go to this market with a sure structure, or a safe structure, regarding all the processes that involve money laundering. So, but within the governance, the Banrisul, besides being in level 1 of governance, where it's aligned to the best practices of corporate governance of the market, not only in the way we present our balances, but we got policies and guidelines that are specific, and we use the arbitrage chamber in order to address whatever controversies that could show up. So the bank created, we are a very good payer of dividends. I'm going to show it. So we've got a very good policy of remuneration for the policies of, and that actually addressed two chapters. First, to maintain our capital structure as per Basel in order to grow the credit. That's part of our bank, but we can maintain a very good, satisfactory structure, and besides that, we can pay our shareholders with a very good participation, more or less 50% in 2007-8. So the POT today is stable in 40%. So, but for this year, because of the pandemic, it's all the limits the distribution of dividends and interest on own capital. That in our case is 25%. So that interrupted a little bit the capacity of the bank, because it's something that was not foreseen. That's conditioned to the national economy, the capacity to pay on a regular way, on a quarterly basis, its shareholders. But the structure of governance is focusing in commissions that we created in order the capacity of increase the participation of dependent members were in different boards. We've got a commission for eligibility. We've got a risk commission as well. This very important for a financial institution. And now the committee, and we've got other support committees for the corporate governance structures. And these committees integrated by employees of the institution. A little bit summary of what is our group. We're not a singular about. We've got a credit card, a safety company that makes the wholesaling, and companies that makes also insurance and capitalization, and that's a little bit of my presentation, just a little bit of introduction of the bank, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the economic market, what was the impacts for the future that we might see. So thank you very much. So good afternoon to all. Thank you very much, Alexander, for introducing me. I'm Cassius Zimmerman, Superintendent of Treasury and Finance from Banrisul, the area from which I've got the responsibility by analysis and economical follow-up. So I'm going to talk a little bit to you about that and just giving you a general overview of the year we are passing regionally and nationally. So based on which we made all the management, so that we could have a clear notion of what is going on and how can we handle that internally. So regarding Brazil, I think this is something that we've been following. This is nothing new for you to have an idea and context. Brazil is actually recovering its was recovering its process of economic normalization, rescuing be the stability for the agents to act, but all of a sudden the pandemic actually impaired a lot these recoveries. So we can see in the graph that we put here, that's an indicator from the central bank of economical activity, how this actually was impaired the economy in mid-year. We had a very big shock of economy that actually destroyed many different sectors of the market, but it's very obvious when we show a graph like this. So And besides having a certain normalization, this process of how they handle that during the year with all the effects of quarantine, although we are starting to recover, they didn't place us at the level equal prior to the pandemic. So, and that effect, that probably absolutely unexpected, came in a moment when we were having many different difficulties from the tax and tax collections. We had to actually put right many different plans. Because of that, that happened very slow. And all of a sudden, with the shock of this new reality, with the pandemic, that actually turned it much more serious. The situation, the tax collection system, and that what we see more is the vision of risk regarding Brazil. So what the premium is in order to act in the national market. And then dollar is like an important thermometer to understand how this is. And we see the rise of the price of the dollar during, actually, the dollar was going to more robust markets. And so, and that actually came over with a pandemic, but also worsened because of the perception of difficulties of the government or handling with the impacts, the economic impacts that this pandemic brought. So we've got this fact in the dollar. That's one. So this is another issue that I think from the financial market, I think within the retail banks is what we see the most. It's through the interest rate structure that the central bank or Brazilian federal bank acted, try to make a flexibilization, try to reduce the interest rates. So we see how the market started to require a bigger premium when we are trying to making negotiation of futures, mainly interests, and that had an impact in the market, it's mainly in our market, putting more expensive the cost of money, that actually affecting other aspects and has a chain effect within whole bank market. There has already been a little bit of return of these these premiums in the short term. But we see we had a little contrary effect. So because of the economic policy, but then in the long run, it will actually have the long point of the tail will go up. That actually the intention, but there's a normal effect that the market protects itself from the difficulty on the capacity of having a forecast of all the economical aspects. So it's something that that actually puts a little bit more of difficulty in order of the function of the economy in the short term. In the state of Rio Grande do Sul, besides the national effects, we had also effects of a drought. As you might know, most of you know, the state of Rio Grande do Sul is agricultural based, very big agribusiness market than the average of the country. We are double our agribusiness, if you want, or cattle grazing. It's twice the national average. So when we've got a drought or something from the nature, this every X number of years this happens, and it happened in this very year, that actually puts a little bit more of difficulty into the whole economy and all this turmoil that we commented, with all the economic difficulties plus the droughts. So when we see the behavior of our product, we see what were the impacts of these effects. So, because of the importance of these sectors and the effects in the future, we also affect other sectors, like industry and services. So here the graphs that you can see show very clear the steep fall that the economy having. We were in a recovery, as I told you in the very beginning, regarding the Brazilian economy, but lately, because of the pandemic, we had a very deep drop. So, and that is a hint of what we are commenting at the end. We start a little change at the end of that graph here, but we had a very big fall. So here the IBCR and so on, this is what we are expecting for the future. The IBCR is a regional one. It's got the same metric of the national one that I told you. And you can see that although the steep fall in similar of what Brazil had, we regionally, we see already in the last readings how we start to come back with a little bit more of recovery. Maybe it's like a V recovery. Maybe it's not the most close V's, but it is already showing a recovery, and maybe a little bit faster than expected in the beginning of the pandemic. I don't have all the graphs on that, but if you see, if you can remember, the first forecast from the Focus showed a drop of the GDP very big, but something like 7, 8, 9 negative for 2020, and now the next readings already they are talking about 4, 4.5, something. Some others even saying something a little bit less negative than that. So so the last readings are not that pessimistic, but that's very natural, part of the human behavior. So here I show you the same thing, but yes, we can see how the pandemic and all the other aspects that actually affected the trust of people and companies in investing. But now, the last reading, it's maybe a little bit better because this market is starting to recovering with a lower down of the restriction and quarantine, because some of the restrictions are a little bit less stringent, although that in a certain way we start to affect the trust of the families and companies. So, and that actually strengthens our impression that yes, they can see a little bit of recovery right now. So, getting to the end of my comment, what we are expecting for the next year, more or less what I told you in my presentation. This is a perspective that 2020 will be bad, it's unavoidable, but not that bad as we were expecting a couple of months ago. And 2021 and the next years is more difficult to forecast. Because statistics, because the sector, we are going to foresee a little bit more favorable behavior, because we are still having to have some economical stimulus globally in order to recover, in order to attenuate the effects of the pandemic, and that will have an effect in the whole productive chains and industries. So, for that to become true, it's important to have that for that behavior to become true. It's very important that the pandemic gets some control, or whether through vaccine or an optimization of the structures that make all the management so that the pandemic doesn't actually spread or mitigate its effects by the productive sector, and internally that we need to also go forward with some reforms so that the economic perception improves, and with that enabling a consolidation of the recovery of the trust between family of and companies. We need to be very careful with the issue of employment, because that should leverage consumption so that the economy recovers in its complete cycle. But it is very important that this is within the pipeline of the government, so that this scenario, the most positive scenario, is actually confirmed. So that this year, we are going to have more or less a -4, and next year we are going to go to 3. And if things are well managed nationally, we're going to arrive to there. Maybe we are going to have next year, we might have a little bit of inflation, many that could affect also foreign exchange. But we might have some problem of lack of production, and that balance will be achieved in a little bit higher price. So maybe the Selic index should be adjusted next year to achieve that scenario. But the important thing is we're able to handle the pandemic. And this is a challenge that the government has got and the companies have. And I think that Banrisul I think we handled it very well. And I understand that we are going to have more comments about that afterwards. So, Mr. President, so thank you very much. So first, I think it's very important to make a little view of this year, what happened since March. And since March, it was very clear to us in Banrisul that this pandemic would be severe and long. So we started to take some measures in order to handle with the pandemic. First one was to try to put in home office all our employees within the risk group as well. All the activities that could be done through home office should be done in home office. So we placed all the central administration and management, 3,000 employees. We placed them, 2,700 of them went to home office, and only 300 working in our offices. That was a minimum necessary in order to continue to be operational, right? So that was one of our initiatives. And in the branches, we placed all those that were in the risk group in home office, and also put reserve teams in order to have different shifts working. So all the branches that had people enough to do that change of shifting, the instruction was to do different shifts. So we thought that we should have a consultancy in the medical area. So we hired a benchmark hospital in order to give us consultancies, and brings all the health platforms to help us. So we established different procedures that were followed and adhered to as per the hospital consultancy. Among other recommendations, if we had a positive test, we were going to close that branch, test every single employee of that agency and would only reopen when the employees are cleared by the test, creating a total hygienization of the agency. We also use services of telemedicine or remote medicines, so that employees could have as a first approach through the physicians, through the internet. That process continues until today. The pandemic, it's recovering, regrowing this moment. So we continue with all these processes. The contingencies continue to be available. We try to maintain most of our employees in home office, and we're going to continue the evolution of the disease and the vaccines. So in order to see when we could come back to normal work, and then we are going to do it always, some of the people with home office, because many different industries were adapted very well to this new modality. And besides of the health problems that we had in March, that we were having an financial emergency. Different industry had in the second half of March, their businesses stopped with a drop of invoicing that more than 50%. So that made us to have a very big concern on how to help our clients. So the first decision was to provide, re-agree all the debts that those clients had with us. So in that case, we started, and the installments, so we enable them to ask if the two next installments could be re-agreed upon in order to be paid after 1 year, and that was very good, was very well accepted by the people with an app. It was possible for the client to ask that a negotiation. So you can see in our slide 228,000 agreements were agreed, renegotiated, and are going to be renegotiated for more 1 year in generic lines, and certain credits could have special conditions. For example, real estate, 6 months without paying, and then the balance would be reincorporated afterwards. And many other businesses, consigned credit, for example, we had the possibility of 3 months renegotiated within 1 year. And after those 2 months, we offered for some clients a second chance of renegotiate. But what we saw, and that happened in June, July, that the demand was not that big back again. So the clients that requested these 2 months of re-agreement, they didn't see the need of asking more term to pay their debt. So, and that was a very big news, and that is in a very big part has already been paid, because since June, July, 12 months, they already haven't been. They paid half of their debt. So for their negotiated installments, we've got 744 million reais on those installments. We've got very big numbers. The delinquency is only 1.6%. Only 7 and so forth million reals were not paid. Next slide, please. So also from June, July, the government projected different programs and credit assurances that we adhered to. For example, we made 8,000 or more than 8,000 operations with a line that's very suitable for a company, with extending the terms of negotiation, and also we had the assurance that of the National Treasury for any delinquency or default. We made a certain part in a certain program called PS, but the PESES, for support the employee. It was financial, actually the payrolls. But we made 2,000 operations, more or less, with a total of 62 million reals. But it was mainly to pay wages for companies that have some kind of payroll service agreed upon with the bank. So we did what we thought it was important, because it was important for us to support our clients, and also we did the PIAC. That it's another line. Is a FGI from the National Development Bank. We had 550 million within this line that has assurance of a warranty of 80% with a stop loss of 20% of the portfolio as a whole. So only within this portfolio, regarding the quality, it's extremely high quality. Default or delinquency for 90 days have fall down. It's 298 more or less. The lower rate since 2019, September 2019. So it's a quite comfortable index, and the coverage for 90 days we are in line with this line of the other banks of the retail competing against us. So, in the breakdown of our portfolio, we can see an improvement in the mix. The consigned credit has grown. Regarding the natural people, we've got 79% of our portfolio in this kind of credit. That's a portfolio that's absolutely assured by the payments of social contributions by the employer. And we've got some efforts in real estate credit for natural people. And we've got also rural credit or agricultural credit that today is 8.8. Then we've got a very healthy risk portfolio with 88.8% of the risk, total risk, in rates of AA up to C. And consigned credit, we've got a portfolio growing 8.7 in general. But if we see the breakdown, the portfolio originated by third parties growing at 20.6% per year, and our portfolio 4.7. Actually, this number, the 9 months, what we see in the last in September, a growth superior to that index. So we expect that that number continues growing. Let us see. But in linear, the combined growth is quite considerable, and the corresponding is a growth of 20.6 per year. Real estate credit, we understand this very, very good in order to acquire new clients, and I think it's a product that actually brings a lot of loyalty to the clients. So we believe that credit for natural people is a very, very good business for us, because it enables us to acquire a superior quality client. And this year we've made a very big effort in this line. We've made more than 1,000 new businesses and agreements. Delinquency very small, 1.77. So we believe it's a wonderful product for us to continue to incentive and leverage it, and it's an assured because it's got a fiduciary warranty, so it's a kind of a very good credit with a robust credit portfolio with warranty or for the market. So we've got a very big investment in agriculture. So we've been growth a double digit in rural areas for credit, very solid. For our budget, we're going to have a growth of 26%. September to September, the growth was 20%. So we believe that because of the sizes of the economy of the agribusiness in our state, we need to continue in that same line so that we can reach a market share compatible with our participation in the whole credit market that we participate. So on this segment or this industry, where we are one of the most competitiveness. So we should have a relevant participation in this market that has shown a market with solid say warranties, and besides, regardless of the drought, we think because of the levels of the price of the grain, we are going to have a very good result without very big traumas. Now I'm going to give the word to the director, our CFO, Marcos. Thank you very much, Chair. So now to talk a little bit about our numbers, I think nothing better than everything you have already talked about the economy and the strategy of the market. So, aligned to the market, the profitability of the bank was affected because we closed the first 3 quarters of 2020 with a result of 20% inferior to the same period of the prior year. So the main lines to explain this development comes because of a lower financial margin, where the effect of the effect of the indebtedness shows then the increase of credits, and the reduction of the tariffs and services explains a little bit these results. So financial margin, because of having there are 2 points that I want to check in our chart. There's margin, our credit margin, because although all the drop that happened for the fourth to the first quarter of this year, because of the excess of use of the credit, because of the biggest growth with the consigned credit, that is translated in very good credit incomes. Besides the third quarter, as you can see here, for Treasury has an effect, especially in securities and bonds from the national government indexes to the Selic index, that actually suffered because of the market require bigger premiums. So the very important highlight is our capture of clients. We as a retail bank, with one of the biggest market share in long term in Rio Grande do Sul, and that's due because we have a very strong brand, consolidated, solid brand, and our structure of actually capturing clients, 2/3 of that total are natural people with average cost aligned or maybe one of the lowest of the market. That actually translated into our liquidity. We've got our very biggest levels of cash, and they're very important for the future. We, of course, need a stabilization of the scenario of the country for the portfolio to grow. So regarding the revenue from tariffs and services, that's been a drop because of the effects of the pandemic. So we have already been able in the past to cover our payroll or the expenditures of the personnel with those revenues, but this has suffered in the first 3 quarters. But if we see in the third quarter, we already have a certain reaction, mainly in our Vero, that's a credit card that we're starting to have a better performance. So, administrative expenses, we are going to talk a little bit more in the presentation. What are the strategies that we are going to push forward for the next periods of the bank? We already see a reduction of 5%, 4.8%, and in the third quarter, if we compare 9 months against 9 months, that happens generally, and highlight the companies of personnel or manpower grow very little in this same period. So, in order to close the main indicators, they are Basilea index. We've got 16.2 of Basilea, 15.1 in level 1 main capital, and that shows our solid structure for capital that coupled with our liquidity give us all our possibility of growing and expand our businesses. So here there's a very highlight. As Alexander already commented, the central bank in 2020 limited the distribution of interest on capital for financial institutions to an interested level, and the bank follows very strongly Basilea. It's not a problem for us. In order to maintain a level of payout, as we can show in the graph, the bank has had a level of 40%. That's actually the 25% legal plus the 20% mandatory. No problem with the capital. That's not a problem. So fun to follow the businesses. That's all what I had to say, and I'll give the word to our chair to continue with the presentation and what we are expecting for the future of the bank. So thank you very much, Marcos. So since we took office, we put many different plans of modernization and evolution of Banrisul, more or less in order to be more competitive with more adequate cost, and for that we had to address different action lines. Mainly at the end of last year, beginning of this year, we started to create a task force in order to rationalize our branches. So we made a work in which to try to maybe merge some branches in February, and then in March we had the pandemic. So with the uprising of the pandemic, we changed the focus, was to address our health problem. That process actually stopped for 3 months, April, March, July, and now we are going to follow not only to close and merge some branches, but also continue our work of planning in order to have new actions in order to streamline our efforts. So we also discussed how we should insert in an environment of innovation and disruption. Besides our digital transformation of our company, how could we actually accelerate this process? So we picked many different actions. One One, we talked with the people of the Instituto Caldera from Institution of Innovation that actually takes all the more state-of-the-art companies that work with state-of-the-art technology that in order to help us and in order to accelerate initiatives of innovation. And Banrisul created our tech innovation space that's a Banritech in partnership with Technopuc. So this in the building of telecommunications, is going to function this Banritech that will be our hub, that where we are going to incubate and leverage technology companies, startups that focusing in innovation for the financial sector. Our interest is to grow with disruptive technologies that could grow from our investments, creating also an environment of connection and creativity. He's asking to change the slide. Here we are. So, what we've been doing digitally, that we have already delivered every single day new tools with these new features in our app. We've placed 34 agreements of credit in our, so that you can actually contract or acquire those credits through the app. We also placed in our app the possibility of getting or increase investments in retirement programs. So have grown a lot the offers provided through digital channels to our clients, so without the need of going physically to the branches or giving a call, something very simple. So we've got here the numbers of the growth of this channel. We've got 261 million accesses, the growth of 48%, and 76% for all our new transactions and in digital channels. And from the last month, we included in the accesses to the portals .com.br, in order to use all the digital services, both from the federal bank and the bank for the state of the state. We made an agreement in order to provide that possibility to our clients. With that agreement, our clients do not need to have another login and password to go to the Federal National Bank or the National Federal Reserve using our login, our password, as they do through our bank, and through that they have access his data in the Internal Revenues Department or the federal bank, something, so that our client doesn't have to have a different access to go to the government portals. Telling just doing some things that happen in the technology aspects, and our technicians are always adding new features. And we've launched a couple of months ago the Banrifest, that's payment by proximity, Banrifast. In that, in this time of pandemic that people don't want to touch, they put their finger in the buttons of the little machines. So with Banrifast, you can do this payment just through approximation. So Banrisul has is as well make big efforts in sustainability. We have incentivized generating the um, sunlight production. We have increased the amount of contracts that are implementing in their houses or homes or industry or business this distributed generation through photovoltaic cells. We grew to 3,000 contracts in 1 year. So besides that, with 135 million, we've got finances for wind energy and all the different sectors of renewable energy. We signed the agreement of the United Nations since 2013. So we, in the next months, we're going to grow our action in the segment of sustainability, aligned with the concern of our stakeholders. Next. Regarding the social aspect, Banrisul supports many different social programs in the whole state, whether they are cultural movements, health movements, or projects to support the more vulnerable people, supporting, for example, youngsters in the favelas, or to shelters for elderly, hospitals to people with specific diseases. So we could actually talk I could talk long, or the amount of things that we do in social support. We invest more than 6 million, and we've got a team that's always supporting our investments in that area. So, within the context that I commented regarding restructuring, of course, we've got a very big concern, as Marco said, with the administrative expenditures. We are too very big. They are not only personal costs, but also all the others, third parties, procurement of equipment, any agreement that is a cost of the bank. We are very stringent. We've got a very stringent agreement in order to contain or reduce costs. In the case of PDV, we opened this PDV program for volunteer retirement. 1,500 employees were eligible for that PDV program that they could be retired or retirable. They could acquire the right to retire. All those that were going to acquire this right to retire in 2 years, 903 employees at years, 62 of those are from IT. The IT has a very special condition for that, because they will happen until 2022. Because of the decision of our IT chief officer, because we need to have a knowledge transfer. So some of them will go to be retired during the 2022, because in order so that they have time to make that knowledge transfer. The rest are going to be retired from the company from now in December, 22nd of December. So the cost was then. The cost was 180 million reals, and the yearly economy or savings, direct and indirect, so wages by social contributions, 770 million reals. So of course, besides the savings, there are other savings that we don't know how to measure. For example, not having a special desk for that person to work, but that's only wages, is wages, social contributions. That was 760 million reals. So we also, with that program, it's got a characteristic regarding Brazil. It was a very big victory that all those are. On the other hand, they will give you a final agreement regarding so that those people cannot go to the jury and make a lawsuit against any value to be discussion to the labor agreement, because that's within a chapter actually liquefying the agreement so that we finished, so there's no further liability of the after those retirements. Then we've got, we are reducing the number of employees, we are restructuring the number of branches. As Marcelo said, there's a process that started, it was interrupted in March and came back in July, and we are going to continue to that process. We'll continue, and we've got a process that will continue, that will be permanent, that will be the assessing of the network of branches and using it as per the need. So regarding personnel, also we hired a consultancy, international consultancy, a very well-known consultancy with a very big expertise regarding personnel, even for special for banks. It's called Mercia, and the goal is that Mercia reviews all our career plan, our compensation plans, variable compensations. I think if we reduce a lot the number of employees and the branches also, and align in a more efficient way our interests, and we can achieve more positive results for all. So this work is ongoing. We're going to implement it through 2021. We're going to then harvest good fruits with that. So, in a summary, to arrive to a conclusion, our focus continue to be a retail bank focused in the south of Brazil, mainly for credits with a very solid warranty, like real estate, agribusiness, and obviously the micro and small businesses that are very important to use all that capillarity so that we can actually achieve those companies, reach those companies. We've got also the management, of course, using as more our distribution channels so that we can find the less cost possible, because to accelerate our efficiency. And last, I would like to thank APIMEC in São Paulo and APIMEC from Rio Grande do Sul to having our opportunity to expose to our stakeholders our results and strategies, and I make myself available. Any introduction? Okay. Then as you finish, we're going to do the Q&A. So we'd like to congratulate everything for the amount of information that you've provided to our public of investors and interest and stakeholders. I would like to tell you that this is our acknowledgement of the analysis of APIMEC. So those companies that search a very good corporate governance, and we see that very clearly in your bank. Is one of the pillars is transparency, and we see that you've been running after to have that contact with the market. We from APIMEC South and other APIMECs, we have received the support from Banrisul in our events. The Banrisul and the brokers are legal entities, members from APIMEC. We thank you for that support. We're very thankful for that acknowledgement. In name of APIMEC, I would like to congratulate all the team of Banrisul. Congratulations to all because of this meeting. Thank you. Ivanov, thank you very much. Then continuing. Now, I'm going to read some questions that are coming through the chat, so that they could actually be answered by the first question. It has questions why there's a big discount regarding the private banks, if there's any perspective from the board to reduce that discount. Okay. Actually, the discount, the public banks regarding of the private, they are similar. Then the discount, the Banco do Brasil was very similar in the numbers of discount we provided. Of course, there is a difference because of the fact of being a public bank or regarding management corporate to private bank. We need to follow all the rulings that the private banks are not obliged to follow. For example, to hire any following hiring or contracting any vendor provider, creating a certain bid that's got a little term to go through. All the bidders, they start to fight, and then the terms are longer. And not only the bidder that makes the smaller offer is the one that's a best vendor regarding the quality of technology. And sometimes you need to hire it cheaper because of the regulations, and sometimes our competitors, they choose this with a mix between price and quality. Price is not all. So in our case, we satisfy minimum legal conditions. You are obliged to hire the cheaper, and that is not always the most efficient. Sometimes from the point of the payroll, we've got restrictions to hire and to fire people. We cannot go to the bank of the competition and make a bid and take a quality professional to put into our personal payroll. You need to open a public bid, and our competition doesn't have that need. So that discount is not because of Banrisul, it's because of the difference with a private bank, because of this difference of liberty for the administration. Anybody else would like to add anything that you might deem necessary? I would add, yes, you put all the difficulty that we have as a public employee, but then our presentation, we try to show you the different steps that we need to in order to address and see what's the economical situation we've got, protecting the quality of our assets, and that justifies some loss of profitability in this very moment. But the measures that are being taken in IT or processes and cost management naturally will bring another relation when today we've got that if the environment doesn't have perfect evaluation of the asset, regardless of the private or public control, But what steps we're taking in order to turn our bank more efficient with all its partners and companies affiliated or whatever, or partner, whether it's a broker or whatever, provider of credits, in order so that we can work with governable expenditures than other products. This perspective, we are seeing a very small recovery, will actually address the problems of valuation or perspective of what would be the market value of the price of the share of the Banrisul. So the effort of the company are trying to be done towards looking for efficiency that will be beneficial for the shareholders and the company. Can I put there? I think it was very complete, your intervention. Thank you. Other issues, but there's something that's similar question. What are we expecting for 21? We don't work with external perspective of a price. Price is a consequence of the market. The better we can show our potential of efficiency and balance our opportunities, the better will be the target price that the market is looking for. What is the level of return that the bank will maintain in the long term? I don't know. Great. Okay. That is a question very important, one of the most difficult to answer. The banking system, not only Banrisul, we still have very expressive results, but we are a sector that's passing through a constant transformation, and in order to answer that question, what's a return on investment that we are expending? I will answer in a different way. Our goal for return ROI is aligned with return on investment with the main retail bank to close the gap, and the shares, as already mentioned, actions are being taken in order to address that value return on investment. Regarding the discount, they are saying that we are negotiate 66% of the equity valued. A repurchase of the shares would make any sense? That will be something that will always be considered, but we haven't taken any special decision on that. But that's only always within the focus. In the short term, we are much more involved in the internal aspect of administration and governments, but there's nothing special regarding that item. And maybe already commented just to many questions on the same issue, the PDV, the retirement program. The cost will be bared on the third quarter? Yes, totally. So this 180 million that was object of our communication, some to the market, we calculate that 50%, more or less 50%, will be the result in the last line. So the quarter naturally is going to have the performance the quarter is going to have in these economical conditions. In this coming out from the pandemic, but because of the efficiency from 2021, they actually with this expenditures will be actually filed, but that process doesn't finish with that because this is actually a part of a whole process. The difference here is this plant was able to have that total, there's no acknowledgement or provisions for legal effects for the future because of the kind of agreement. So that was something good. So it's important to tell that yes, we already we know what are the expectations. We may have some adjustment of price because of inflation next year. So what have we got agreed for the small base of the amount of employees? We are going to adjust the payroll from September next year. So that was one of the benefits that we obtained with the negotiation with the PDV plan, with the whole category in September, that actually impacted a very big part of the quarter because of a fixed part of the budget. But that cost will actually be done. We are going to recognize that in the balance of the last quarter. So the fact that the bank interrupted because of the pandemic, the flow of payment of dividends on the payout, is there any possibility of payments to have a different flow? And when will be it so that you could pay extraordinary dividends? Marcus, please. Yes, as we already commented, the bank has a tradition of pay dividends aligned with the market, and we've got a stability and a consistency around the 40%, so the 15 plus 25. So answering for immediately, I would say that we are going to maintain that payout structure. And let me tell you, Marcos, that the structure of a return investment with the shareholders actually tries to maintain the capital structure of the bank. It has a rule where they establish the minimum condition for the bank to discuss the possibility of having an extraordinary payment. Neither says that we cannot. It might happen because that's the history of the bank. It is a very good dividend payer and is a frequent dividend payment, even because of the tax dividend incentive. Regarding the financial scenario, is there any difference of the margins and credit, the possibility of making provisions? I think before getting to that answer, we need to give an overview of what was actually repassed. As already mentioned, with 744 million of credits that were agreed upon with the debtors. So, but one, that this rearrangement of the payment of the installments were for the good client of Banrisul that was even now delinquent. From that volume that we renegotiated, we already bring back a very big part, and that comes and the installment paid beyond 60 days is having a very good performance. So regarding the provision, we still monitoring on a daily basis, and mainly the evolution of delays, a kind of industry or company. The impression we are having today is a much better impression than the one that we had 3 months ago. We understand that the provisions made are enough to handle the expected expenditures. So personally, I think that those provisions, if everything continues in the way it's being done, they will be even less for 2021. Regarding margin, was the main issue of change of level is the level of liquidity. The bank, because of a growth that was not that big in the credit portfolio, or less expressive this year than in 2019, we had a growth of acquire new clients quite big, and part of that resource went to treasury, where they, with a lower interest rates, actually committed a little bit our results. So because commenting all that, yes, with a growth of portfolio, with a better scenario, we are thinking that we might have back again a growth. In the same line, that expectation of growing our credit portfolio, you also answer that. Well, regarding the provision, that's the same. Would be established. How is the index of coverage of portfolio, and you're going to expand that credit portfolio to other sectors. As I told you at the end, mentioned by Marcus, our focus was we've got focus is a focus. I don't have 10 focus. I need to have only one focus, is consignated credit, agro, and real estate. And so those are the main items of our portfolio, and we're going to continue to focus on that. We are not going to disperse our attention to other sectors or industries, because we need to give our attention to each. So those are our focus. Consignated credit, agribusinesses, and real estate. Those are the focuses. So, talking about that, there's a question that the variable income dividends. So, how do you see the repositioning of the company Banrisul broker? Do you have any strategy in that sense? So, we are rethinking the broker. We are in soon. We may be going to reposition the activity of the broker. Now we've got nothing to tell, but we are studying the issue. We want to give them a stronger role for the broker. So the broker is going to have a bigger role in the future, more than we've got today, but we've still got nothing decided yet. We are still waiting some couple of pieces of information to have a final decision. And because of time, before saying thank you and closing this presentation, there are 2 questions we could answer. First, is there any possibility of the bank migrate to other levels of corporate coming from level 1, from 2? And I would like to answer that question, if you don't mind. So there is a natural problem regarding the new market, because the bank runs with common and preferred actions, and there's a rule of control by the state, and the state has got 98% of the common actions, but less, or 50% of the market. So that that's a constitutional norm of the state that the company needs to maintain. So regard level 1 or 2 within the listing, the bank is level 1 with very big things that focus conditions, that have conditions of the other levels. If we pick it for how we are with the shares, we are handling in specific cases, treating them with the same conditions from shares of the control group. So the bank also addresses many things as level 2, like the arbitrage committee. So we have the conditions from the states. We actually comply with the regulation of the state that impairs has to go to level 2, but we already comply with some other norms that are specific from level 2. And the last question is, coming back to the issue of the credit, because it's impacted if the improvement that we are seeing in the portfolio, the bank is expecting what would be the moment that you are going to have the peak of delinquency or defaults, people being default. These are very complicated questions. I expect to the end of the year, and supposing that things will continue to perform and will happen in that as foreseen. Some good things are expected for the end of the year, beginning of next year, mainly the part of the vaccine. And these things are very important in order to take out the second wave of the COVID. So working with this, and I understand it will come at the end of the year. So, Chair, the other fellow representatives, these are the part of the answers. We passed a little bit along. So if you want to say the last final considerations. So thank you very much, Alexandre. I would like to thank APIMEC São Paulo, the opportunity of our bank and its board and its professionals pose to the shareholders and stakeholders what our plans, and I thank everybody that participated and posed their questions in this video conference. Thank you very much. We also thank a lot for your partnership.